Hello and welcome guys to the second Dawntrail Extreme Guide. This time we'll be taking on Zoraljah. Before we begin, we'll need to do light party stacks once again, as well as pairs. For your light parties, do 2 DPS, healer and a tank, and then pairs, same thing as last time, tanks with melees, and your healers with range DPS ideally. The first thing we're going to have is in Endwalker fashion. We begin with a raid wide called Actualize. This attack will resurface quite a few times throughout the fight. So Actualize is just going to do some pretty decent raid wide dam. So the first main mechanic that we're going to be introduced to is Multidirectional Divide. It's going to do a plus AoE that's going to spawn a whole bunch of grid-like lines. These lines are going to grow in size and make small square and rectangle safe spots because they're going to grow and they're going to be grid-shaped AoEs. The kicker here is the cast bar that follows up afterward called Backward Half or Forward Half. Backward Half means that the safe spot will be behind him. Forward Half means that the safe spot will be in front of him. The final determining factor is his sword that will glow blue. If it is Backward Half, you are going opposite of the blue sword, and if you're doing forward half, you are going on the sword side. There's 4 potential safe spots for this, and we use markers, and we call it out based on what it is. So, for example, if it is backward half with a sword on the right side, back behind, opposite of sword, so back and left. And you just use that formula throughout. It's a recurring attack, so the fact this is at the start of the fight means we get plenty of practice. Once that's done, another multi-directional divide comes out, which adds the grid mechanic again, except this time we'll have 2 tank tethers. These do tank buster damage, mitigate very heavily, and also make sure that the tanks are not standing close to each other or close to the party, because they're pretty big AoEs. Zoraljah is going to begin casting Dawn of an Age, which does pretty heavy raid-wide damage, but more importantly, will change the arena. All around you there will be 4 new platforms, and these platforms are going to be manipulated in such a way where he's going to affect the platform you're standing on. Vollok will be the first cast bar after this. What it's going to do is spawn a whole bunch of individual swords on every platform, but it is a bit of a bait. He hasn't activated them yet, and he's only going to pick 2 of these platforms. Vollok is spawning the swords, so you can look at them if you'd like, but the real thing we're looking for is called sync. Sync is when he's activating 2 of the platforms. Once platforms are activated, whatever happens to those platforms will happen to yours. So what's going to happen here is we want to identify the 2 platforms that are being struck, as well as use the process of elimination to delete the safe spots that are no longer safe on our platform by looking at the other ones. At the same time, he will be casting half full, which is just a left or right cleave. So once you see left or right cleave, you can position your camera in such a way where you can see the 2 platforms being affected and pick a square that is not being hit by either of them by Vollok. Greater Gateway is probably the most annoying mechanic in a sense of wrapping your head around it, so if this one takes a few pulls, don't worry about it. He's going to use the 4 platforms again, except this time, after casting Blade Warp as well as Forged Track, he's going to tether to these platforms. One of the platforms he'll tether to twice, one of them he's going to tether to them once. The one with 2 tethers is where I like to start my solve, as there's going to be 2 line AoEs that are darting through my platform. And we'll see the 2 tethers that are they shift in the lane based on the little crooked tether things that you see between our platforms. So you have to, like, in your head calculate where they're going to end up on your platform. The weird part about this is on the platform that he has 1 tether to, that one could be either a fire tether or a air tether. If it's fire, that just means that once it crosses onto your platform, it's going to grow in size and eat additional lanes to its left and right. And the air tether just means there's a knockback. So the objective here is to stand in a spot on your platform that is not being cleaved by a line AoE. And if it was air, pop arm's length. It's the only knockback that we need this fight, so I would always pop Arm's Length if you get the pattern that uses the air tether. The wind and fire swords can only ever dash through the center lanes. The blue swords can still dash in the side lanes, but knowing the elements can only be in the middle helps eliminate half of the arena for you. As this resolves, we'll get yellow pyramid markers on our heads. These are from E4S actually, and they're just spread markers. Your spread will encompass the entire little square that you're standing on, so as soon as we hide from the line AoEs, make sure everyone darts out and spreads. If you do get tagged by line AoE, it's not lethal, so if your healers have time to make a clutch play, you can actually survive messing up this mechanic a little bit. And since I do think it is the most difficult mechanic to execute, I would bet on having a heal ready for this just in case people mess up. Once the spreads are all done, Zeral's just going to cast Actualize once more, which is our raid wide, and we're going to be moving into Projection of Triumph. For Triumph, he will spawn a whole bunch of swords all over the arena, and we're going to ignore them for now. The real thing we need to be watching here is the lines that spawn on the edge of the arena and slowly moving towards us. The ones that have little circles, or O's, are going to be dynamos or donuts, and the only time they go off is when they collide with the swords that are currently on the map. The other line that's coming towards us is a small circle AoE whenever it touches one of the swords, so we want to avoid those. It's worth mentioning though that those circle AoEs are actually quite small, so you can hide between the blasts, whereas the dynamo / donut type ones, you can't hide between them because their AoE is massive, but you can hide inside of them. I want to stress that as this is resolving, there is no one clear-cut strategy, and you can just solve it however you'd like as long as you're not standing in the path of any AoEs. I highly suggest solving in such a way where you can stay near middle, and I like to follow the donut AoE around personally. But staying near middle will give you a bit of a lead, as while we're doing these dodges, Zeralja is going to once again cast forward or backward half. Just like before, he will cleave either front or back, and then his sword will have the same logic that it's been using since earlier in the fight. So if it's a backward swing, his sword will be hitting the side that it's on, and if it's a forward swing, the sword will be hitting the other side. Once the swings are done, Zeralja is going to cast another Actualize for Raid Wide Dam, and then we are going to quickly move into Projection of Turmoil. Projection of Turmoil is similar to Triumph in a sense that the line is going to be coming towards us, except this time it has a stack marker on us. There's going to be debuffs for everybody that is essentially saying you need to touch that line or you're dead. But when you touch the line, it does stack damage around you. For this, we do light parties, group 1 left, group 2 right, looking at the line, and slowly feed your people in your light party into the line, which is going to blow them up one at a time. But it's important to note that your other 3 players need to be nearby to soak it. Once you do your soak, you can move through the line freely, and you want to kind of spread these out. We did tank, healer, melee, range, so we'd have our whole light party standing there, tank feeds, and we kind of back up, wait a sec, heal, healer goes in, back up, wait a sec, heal, melee goes in, and then ranged. There's a ton of time to resolve this, so don't rush it, and we'll be seeing this mechanic again later with another thing happening at the same time, so your group should practice not going too fast, but you don't want to be too slow either. Try and finish by the time it gets around to the middle-ish part of the arena. If you're finishing around then, you're in pretty good shape. There is a strat in Party Finder right now. You guys have probably seen it. This is called the cheese method. I don't advocate for this personally, but I don't want to make that decision for you. So if you want to do the cheese, essentially what's going to happen here is we are going to stand on the south side of the platform. The tanks are going to drag him down here, which they've already done. And we're actually not even going to do the mechanic at all. We're going to walk into the wall, and it actually just disappears before any of it resolves. So this is going to do some light raid damage here. It's actually not even like that spicy at all. So it's pretty stupid, but as you can see, it's about to despawn there. Never even did it. The party goes on the right side because there's AoE tank busters happening on the left. That's true north. So that's it. The mechanic is over. We never took a step. Bitter Whirlwind is a tank buster swap that happens after Turmoil. So make sure your off tank provokes it during the cast bar. The off tank is then going to get walloped, so the main tank is going to want to take it back. Hits pretty hard. Make sure you mitigate it. After the buster, we move into another Dawn of the Age, which changes the map again, except this time it is actually quite a bit easier. The pair mechanics we talked about earlier are coming up, as we have the Drum of Vollok cast bar. This is your cue to get into your pairs. I call them lanes. You walk up to the new platform that just spawned, and then line up left to right in your pairs, as enumeration towers are going to spawn. This is going to launch your one of your rolls across. Either all DPS are going to get knocked, or all of your supports are going to get knocked. Now, once you're over here, it's worth mentioning that there's not really too much damage that rolls out, but you're going to want to tuck in a little bit to make sure you catch some heals. While you're spread out, he's going to cast Vollok again. Just like earlier in the fight, Vollok is going to spawn a sword, except this time, the sword is going to eat 4 of our squares. As Zaralja casts Sync, the sword that is on our platform is going to also eat the platform on the other side. To prevent too much overthinking, no matter what side you're on, you're always going to be close to the boss. You're always going to be meleeing here, even if you're on the support side, even if you're on the DPS side. The reason for that is because our Vollok is behind us, meaning it will take a front spot on their side. So it just works out. You're always going to be in the melee spot here, depending on if you're melee or support. It doesn't matter. The little pyramids that are spread AoEs are going to happen once again. And because the platforms are currently synced, wherever our players are standing are also going to hit the other platform. So there's 16 tiles. 8 of them are being covered by Vollok, and 8 of them are being covered by players. So just make sure you're spread out in a little cube on your side, and the other side is doing the same. And it will all resolve, and you'll take your spread damage. During this, Zaralja had casted Aero, which gives us a little circular platform to work with. For those of you that did Diamond Weapon, this is going to be a very similar mechanic to the switching sides thing there. After a few auto attacks, backward half or forward half will come into play again. Remember, backward means that side is safe, and forward means that side is safe. So the other side will need to fly over to your platform using this green arrow AoE. It's worth mentioning though that you can't just walk into it and it puts you in the correct spot. You need to actually aim your character. So walk in front of it and then step into it and it'll launch your character correctly. And once you're launched to the correct side, you'll have to quickly adjust to the sword. Remember, if it's backward half, you move away from the sword, and if it's forward half, you move to the sword. Immediately after that, Duty's Edge is a heavy-hitting stack, so make sure you pop some mitts and everyone stacks together, and don't move because it's going to hit you many times. Once the stack damage is done, stay stacked because we have a Burning Chains cast bar. Burning Chains is going to link DPS and supports together, and whoever flew over to resolve the front or back swing is staying on this platform. Whoever did not fly over is going to fly over using the arrow circle and resolve the chain mechanic, because we have to break it, we have to stretch it, and the only way to do that is for whoever was staying here needs to ride the arrow AoE over and snap their chains. Just like before, you can't just step into it, you have to walk in front of the arrow and then fling yourself over, and you should be good. Another cast bar of Actualize will not only deal damage, but will also set the arena and the players back to normal. A few more auto attacks before another projection of Triumph. Much like before, we will have the lines coming in with the different donut AoEs as well as the circle AoEs. And this time, I think this version's a little easier, as the front and back cleave is a bit more of a puzzle, whereas this time, he's just going to cast half circuit during it, which is just a half room cleave. So you're going to want to make sure you're on the side that the blue sword is not on. No tricks, nothing like that. Just resolve the donut AoEs and watch out for the half room cleave. The tanks are going to be getting autoed during this until finally a Regicidal Rage is cast, putting out the tank tethers once again. Make sure the tanks just run away from the group with those. We're going to move into another projection of Turmoil. This is very similar to before, where we do our light party stacks once again, except this time we need to utilize a little bit of patience. I recommend dragging the boss a little bit towards it to give us a little bit of extra time. Start the mechanic as normal, doing your light party stacks, and then once he repositions, he will cast half full again, and he's going to cleave one half of the arena while we're doing this mechanic. You have plenty of time to do a light party stack, move to the side, and then resume doing stacks after. If anything, the little delay while dodging the half room cleaves is just giving your healer time to heal anyway, so take your time with these dodges. You're not in a mad dash to soak these stacks, and just make sure you're dodging the sword, and then resume going back to your side and doing the stacks. You don't have to do any fancy, group to adjust, move to the side, or any of that. You just dodge, go back to stacking. Dodge, go back to stacking. And this shouldn't be too terrible. Once he is on the bottom side of the arena, he's going to cast another Tank Buster swap until finally repositioning to the center of the arena for another Dawn of Age 3. Our 4 platforms are going to spawn again, and this is going to be very similar to the first Dawn. He's going to cast Vollok just like before. Swords are going to appear on all the platforms. He's going to sync up to them. And like before, when we had to check the 2 platforms that had the swords, we're going to do that exact same thing. The only catch this time is that rather than him doing a left or right cleave, he's going to give us those little pyramid spreads. And we're even allowed to dodge first. So you can do your dodge. You can all stack together if you want, but just make sure you spread out with your pyramids afterward. If they had gone off at the same time, this would be a really scary mechanic, but they're not synced up, so it's pretty chill. Another Duty's Edge stack comes after that. He's going to hit multiple times. Just make sure you stay stacked. And once the stack damage is done, we have another of that mechanic from earlier called Greater Gateway. This is the thing with the tethers, the fire and the air thing. There is no differences this time. It is the exact same copy-paste mechanic. So same thing as before. We're going to not stand in line with the blue lines. We're not going to stand in line with the red line, and we're going to pop a knockback immune if we get the Aero. Just like before, we have our pyramid spreads for damage, followed by an Actualize raid wide. It's going to bring the arena back to normal, and we have our final mechanic, which is going to be the very first mechanic of the fight, a Multidirectional Divide. This is going to have the grids again, just like the very start of the fight, as well as his front or back cleave. If the boss is still alive at this point, we will immediately follow up with his hard Enrage, and that is the final mechanic of the fight. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I really appreciate you guys watching, and I hope that this helped out a bit. Both these first 2 extremes of Dawntrail were absolutely fantastic, and definitely a bit of a ramp up in difficulty compared to what we're used to. So pretty good stuff. If you guys have any, like I said, questions, let me know in the comments. We'll be doing guides for the upcoming Savage tier. We'll likely start putting those out probably on like the Friday-ish of that week, and we'll do the whole raid tier. So thanks again so much for watching. Hope it helps, and I'll see you guys in the Party Finder. Have a good one, and bye for now.